Hey, it's Doug with Backcountry Pilgrim. Today I want to talk to you about one of the most popular tents on the scene today. It is the Durston Gear Xmid, specifically the Xmid Pro two-person tent. The Xmid is the name of the line of tents produced by Dan Durston and his company Durston Gear. The Xmid takes its name from the fact that it pulls geometric features from pyramid-style tents as well as X-style trekking poles. There are basically three different models of the Xmid, but they each come in one and two-person varieties. You've got a double wall tent, a solid, and the Pro, which is a single wall Dyneema tent, and that's the one I'm going to be talking about today. Now, this is not going to be a deep dive review. There are so many of those out there already. Rather, what I want to talk to you about are the main reasons why I think it is a tent worth purchasing, and give you a few reasons why it might not be. All right, let's look at three reasons why you might want to buy the Xmid Pro 2. The first is obviously going to be the weight. The Xmid Pro 2 is a sub 20 ounce tent. Now, this is a trekking pole tent, which means that you are going to be supplying your own poles. You can add in whatever weight you need for those. It is made of a 0.55 ounce Dyneema composite with a 15D Sil PEU nylon flooring. Now, the Dyneema is very strong and lightweight, but the 15D nylon flooring was chosen so that the tent does not require a ground sheet, which is also going to lower the overall weight of the tent significantly. It also means a smaller pack size for the tent overall. This brings the Xmid Pro 2 in at 1 ounce over the popular Z-Packs Duplex. However, it is larger and costs less. This is an incredibly lightweight tent, and so if that is one of your main concerns, maybe you're finishing off an ultralight loadout, or like me, you're just kind of getting a little older and getting tired of carrying so much on your back, it's going to be pretty tough to beat this tent. The second reason why you might want an Xmid Pro 2 is its ease of pitch. The Xmid Pro 2 is one of the easiest tents to pitch that I have ever used. Although there are obviously going to be better and worse pitches, the basic setup is quite simple. You only need 4 stakes to get started, because once the corners are staked down on the Xmid, you are basically done, unless you require guy lines to increase the space a little bit or prepare for extreme storms. Now, although the vestibules do not have to be staked out, obviously they can be, and that's going to require 2 more stakes. Once the corners are staked down, you simply insert the trekking poles through the door or through the vent, place them into the reinforced areas meant for the poles, and extend them until they're tight. And that is basically it. Compared to a tent that requires staking out a ground sheet, and then staking down the tent, and then inserting the poles, making sure you've got them in the right place, clipping the tent to the poles, and then attaching a rainfly over the top of all of that, staking it down, the Xmid Pro 2 is a breeze. Further, because it is a single wall Dyneema tent, it can be set up in the rain without water getting inside the body. Now, I realize there are some double wall tents that allow a dry pitch. However, these are rather complicated and require quite a bit of practice to become practical. With the Xmid Pro 2, you basically only have 2 steps. Now, to be fair, this does not mean there isn't going to be any adjustment made. Depending on wind or storm preparation or how much ventilation you're trying to get, the pitches will vary, and it is definitely a good idea to practice these just as you would with any other tent before you get out on trail. One of the things I really liked about the Xmid Pro 2 is that you have carbon stays in the corner that form a kind of Y-tensioned bathtub floor. Regardless of the kind of ventilated pitch you choose, you're going to have that bathtub floor either way. So we have a very lightweight tent that pitches very quickly and easily. Are there any other reasons to get it? Well, I'm going to kind of roll a few different reasons into the third reason, and that is just the attention to detail in the quality and features of this tent. Several features of the Xmid Pro 2 mark it out as a tent where attention to detail has been practiced. The tent's asymmetrical design gives lots of headroom and the spaciousness of a classic double pole shelter, however with the sturdiness, stormworthiness, and simple setup of a pyramid. The value of the asymmetrical design continues when you look at the vestibules, because they are offset from the two different doors that you can use to get in or out of the tent. That also means that if the wind is blowing in one direction, you can use the opposite vestibule to get in and out easily. The seams are not simply sealed or taped, but they are welded shut. You've got number 3 AquaGuard YKK zippers on the fly, standard zippers on the mesh. Each of the main vestibule doors have a magnet inside the tent that allows you to simply snap it closed without having to try to find one of those toggles, and a small cord to tie off the mesh if you want to keep it open. In the 2023 model, pockets were also added to the inside of the tent. The importance of the asymmetry is also seen in the pole position, which are offset from the door so that you're not having to crawl around them, getting in and out of the tent. And this is made even easier by the doors of the tent, which zip from the top down, which keeps them from falling onto the floor or piling up inside the tent to be stepped on. All of these details combine to make what is already a very good tent even better. Okay, so if you are looking for an incredibly light tent that is spacious, two-person, easy to pitch, and has a number of fine detailed features, the Xmid Pro 2 may be the one you want. But are there some reasons why it may not be the one you want? Well, I'm going to give you 3 of those as well. The first reason you may not want a Durston Gear Xmid Pro 2 is obviously the price. At the time of this recording, the Durston Xmid Pro 2 is coming in at $679. Now, given that we live in a world where good tents can be found for $200 or even less, a $679 price tag seems quite high. However, we also need to remember the class of tents that we are in here. Dyneema composite is extremely expensive. There's just no getting around that. And nobody making this kind of tent is really coming in at budget prices. So given its class, the Xmid Pro 2 actually comes in at a very reasonable figure. Okay, so if you've gotten past the price tag on the Xmid Pro 2, is there another reason you might want to consider not getting it? Well, I would say the very fact that it is a trekking pole tent may be an issue, because they maintain their shape by creating tension between the material of the tent and the trekking poles and guy lines. You are absolutely dependent on staking the tent out well to keep it from falling down. Now, in many areas of the world, this is absolutely not a problem. However, if you're going to be hiking somewhere with pretty loose soil or very hard impacted soil, it can be difficult to get the stakes in exactly where they need to be in order to keep the tent's geometry. So if you are going to be relying on a trekking pole tent for your shelter, you are going to want to make sure that you are familiar with alternate staking methods, such as the dead man or small rock, big rock. However, no matter what kind of tent you get, you are going to have to practice with it. There are going to be better and worse pitches, and if you are going for truly ultralight, there really isn't that much of a choice. The third reason that I could think of why you might not want the Xmid Pro 2 is that it is a single wall tent. Typically, the main challenge that is listed with a single wall tent is condensation. If you plan on breathing in your tent all night, you are going to be releasing quite a bit of moisture into the air. In most weather conditions, that moisture is going to condense on the top of the tent, ready to fall on you and your gear. With a single wall tent, you don't have a mesh layer in between, keeping the condensation out of the tent and off of you and off of your gear. Now, this condensation can be mitigated by proper venting. However, there are just going to be times where you're not going to have that option available. The other thing some people may not like about a single wall tent is that because the tent itself is its own rainfly, there is no rainfly to remove. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, weather permitting, it is sometimes nice to just pitch the tent without the rainfly. This allows you to stargaze and see around you and wake up to a beautiful sunrise. And that's simply not going to be an option with a single wall tent. So if that is something that's important to you, you might want to look at the double wall variety. So if you are shopping for a tent in this class and you want something very light, super easy to pitch, and with several finer details that you won't necessarily find in that combination on other tents, the Durston Gear Xmid Pro 2 might be the one for you.